Hey guys, welcome back. Now, with Donald Trump winning the US election, clearly this has been fantastic for the crypto market, giving the entire industry the green light. Bitcoin has since jumped 46%, even Ethereum is up 32%, Coinbase has jumped a huge 85%, and MicroStrategy, well, OMG. However, I still believe this is still just the warm-up to the main event, and the main event being fully blown alt season. And so in this video, we'll be covering the one thing that is still needed before alt season can officially begin. Then we'll cover when do I think alt season will finally begin. And then we'll finish as we enter into the banana zone. Just how long is this going to last? And when is the cycle top going to be? Okay, so first up, let's begin with the one thing that's still needed before alt season can officially begin. Now, even though so many people have been calling for alt season month after month after month, I think the one thing that's still needed, which still hasn't officially happened, is US liquidity. This really is what drives the crypto market, and in particular for the altcoins. So the global liquidity, even though it has been picking up recently, predominantly this has still been China. And the Fed is still running its QT program, its quantitative tightening. And until that flips back to QE, quantitative easing, the altcoins cannot fully be released. So we've got some nice highlights from the latest work by Raoul Pal, and this one is the GMI Total Liquidity Index, and it shows that it happens in seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Now, the crypto winters certainly are not very nice. Even the crypto springs are very, very volatile. The winter and the springs, not great. Terrible winter most recently, and a very volatile spring. And it's the summer, which is the big recovery year, which is pretty much what we've seen so far. It goes sideways for such a long time, and then all the gains happen in about 2 weeks. And we're set up perfectly for this final part of the season. And how long will this last? Well, we'll cover this at the end. But just now, yes, global liquidity is starting to pick up, but US liquidity, which we're thinking that the Fed should flip over from January. This is when they should run off QT and enter QE, as they also have a lot of bills to pay and debt to refinance. And this explains why everything we've seen so far, I think, is still just the warm-up to the main event. And as you'll see, Bitcoin is highly correlated to global liquidity as well. Falling in the winters, a bit of a volatile spring, and the summers pick up, as do the falls. And the big years being 2017, enormous. 2021 was the cycle double top, and it's likely going to peak 2025. Now, in the UK, we call this autumn, but everybody in the US has correctly named this fall, as this is when the crypto market will peak and ultimately fall. And this one shows a nice correlation of what happens to global liquidity and Bitcoin once we switch from QT to QE. When the money printer gets turned back on, it's a direct correlation. And it follows a long, boring period, a long, boring sideways consolidation. As the crypto market falls, it switches over and we get a nice bull market. Again, liquidity gets drained from the market, which we've had over the past couple of years, and the breakout has just occurred. So not long now, you've gone through the worst. If you've held congratulations, as we're now setting up the most exciting part of this 4-year cycle. Now, let's talk about alt season. Firstly, this is why I think Bitcoin and probably MicroStrategy will continue to steal the spotlight when it comes to December, as historically, when you blend the election years together, you can see Bitcoin does very, very well. And before we fully go risk on, people flock to the safest high-risk asset, which is, for crypto, Bitcoin. So this is why I think December is still probably going to be a Bitcoin season. It's going to suck up a lot of the altcoin liquidity, especially if we keep getting these escalations in Ukraine by the US and the UK supplying missiles. Obviously, altcoins hate this, and this is why Bitcoin continues to prevail. But I do think this then changes in January. Now, a great way to see what's going to happen with the altcoins is the king of the altcoins, Ethereum, which, as we all know, has been getting battered for the last couple of years. Unfortunately, the smaller retail investors will jump into the smaller cap coins, which are a lot easier to move, and Ethereum being the other blue chip, when money is flocking to Bitcoin, Ethereum's been hit the hardest. However, this is all likely going to change in Q1, as Q1 is Ethereum's best quarter by far. Average being 92%, median 30%. So Ethereum and likely altcoins, it's all about Q1 and Q2. Q3, not good, and Q4 isn't that strong. It's a lot of red months historically. So if we look back at the last presidential cycle, this is where it was. So this was Q4 last year. And then following that, an absolute storming 160% growth in Q1. Now, obviously this was 4 years ago, and so you would expect diminishing returns. So even though Ethereum may not do 160%, a lot of the altcoins will. And then look the remainder of the year, another 20%, 30%, 20%. So this is why I believe alt season will officially begin with QE starting Q1. And if we check out where are we on the alt season index, when it's above this line, this is when alt season is in full flow and they're vastly outperforming Bitcoin. And when it's down here, this is where Bitcoin is vastly outperforming the altcoins. Right now, this has actually since pulled back a little bit, around 30%. So we are still Bitcoin season. However, this is going to change likely in the next 6 weeks. And finally, you may have seen this. This is the 3 prior cycles. After we've gone through this boring zone, you get these exponential returns, and it happens every single time. We're now on the precipice of the next massive run, which only lasts about 9 months after the halving. And that only comes around once every 4 years. So if you're in the market right now, we're about to enter the most exciting part of crypto, which only comes around once every 4 years. Now, the question is, will history repeat? Well, there's something going on behind the scenes which explains why it keeps doing this. And this was nicely put out by BlackRock, only the most successful money manager in the world. And in their latest presentation, they were showing that crypto is growing and being adopted, not just faster than the internet, which is insane, but also it's outpacing mobile phones, which obviously was an absolute phenomenon. So this is why there's legit reasons why the banana zone keeps happening, which is why the US government couldn't stop crypto, which is why it's likely to go bananas again next year, because fundamentally it is being adopted faster than any of the major technologies of the past. And then finally, the big question is, how long is alt season going to last? How long is the banana zone going to last? Well, ultimately, no one really knows. At this point in the cycle, you'll start noticing that there's so many people saying this time we're going to get a super cycle. And a super cycle is where it breaks the trend. It may go higher than the previous cycles. It may never do another crypto winter. So this is the period in the banana zone where people are calling for a super cycle. I, for one, don't think it's going to happen. I think with human nature, people just bid things higher than they should be at the time, and it just means you get reversion to the mean, and it has to come down. People will panic and oversell it to the downside, and then it has to correct. Because we're made up of hundreds of millions of people all around the world, and we all share this fight or flight response that's programmed into our brains, this pattern, for me, is just going to repeat and repeat and repeat unless the human brain changes in the next 4 years. So we can say unlikely. So how long is it going to last? Well, we can look at the previous cycles to get an idea, although not 100%, it's just a map. And remember, a map is not the territory. However, the first cycle from after the halving, so our last halving happened in April, it was a 12-month run after the halving, which puts us April 2025. The next cycle after the halving was an 18-month run. So this would take us to October next year. And then the last cycle, it peaked out at 12 months and 18 months. So for me, the bracket of time is between April next year and October next year. That is the time frame that I am personally looking at. Now, could it go a little bit longer? It could. So ultimately, you have to play this to your own personal risk-reward profile. As suspected, with Donald Trump winning the US election, this has been amazing for the crypto market, essentially giving the green light to the entire industry. However, although good, I still think this is just the warm-up to the main event, which is full-blown alt season. The one thing that is still needed is the switch from QT to QE by the Fed, which still hasn't happened just yet. And I believe that the true alt season will likely start the second week of January. And so if you're here right now, invested right now, then you're incredibly lucky, as we're about to enter a very short 9-month period, the true banana zone, which only comes out about once every 4 years. So there you are, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Not long now to alt season, but we still have to get through December 1st, and I do think Bitcoin and probably MicroStrategy will continue to steal the spotlight. However, let me know your thoughts and comments below, but just remember to get rid of 100% of the comment spam and trading bots that plague YouTube comments. We are trying out the new SuperThanks Commenting system. So to get your question or comment read and replied to, or just to say thanks, then use Super Thanks below. And for now, just to say, if you did enjoy anything in the video, then drop a like, and a big thank you to everyone who does, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.